Hey everyone. So Rick's off doing some crazy science stuff and left his recording equipment behind, and I figured, you know what? It's time someone told the truth about some of these people in my life, and get into the most overrated ones I can list off. Okay, so let's start with the big one, Rick. And just hear me out. I know everyone thinks Rick is this incredible genius, and sure, he's the smartest man in the multiverse who can build portal guns and create complex scientific inventions. But living with him, he's honestly just exhausting. Everyone acts like his whole I don't care about anything attitude is so cool and deep, but it's not. It's just him being emotionally detached and using his intelligence to avoid dealing with his problems. Like, Rick literally abandons entire realities when things get too messy, instead of just fixing them. His genius has paradoxically made him miserable and aware of the meaninglessness of everything, but somehow that makes him a role model. I've watched this guy's cynical worldview and alcoholism overshadow all his scientific achievements, but everyone acts like he's this untouchable mastermind when really, he's just a reckless, self-destructive person who's responsible for massive collateral damage. And don't even get me started on how he treats our family. He's used me as bait, put me in dangerous situations more times than I can count, and shows complete disregard for life in general. He's capable of destroying entire civilizations for fun, and he lies constantly to appear more stoic than he actually is. But because he makes jokes while doing it, everyone thinks it's hilarious. The guy can't even maintain relationships without his divine intellect somehow making everything worse. But sure, let's all praise him for being emotionally unavailable. And speaking of family members, let's talk about Summer. Everyone thinks she's this confident character who's become Rick's real sidekick, and that I'm just the scared little brother who holds them back. But here's what people don't see. Summer's confidence came at a cost that nobody talks about. The whole reason Summer even started going on adventures with Rick was because she found out she was an unplanned pregnancy. Before that revelation, she thought he was just some weird old man. But suddenly she discovers this fact about her existence, and boom, she's desperately trying to prove her worth by becoming useful to the most emotionally damaged person in our family. And everyone acts like she's so much braver than me. But there's a difference between being brave and being reckless, because you're trying to validate your existence. I've seen how the adventures have affected her, and it's not the empowerment story everyone thinks it is. At least when I'm scared, I'm honest about it. Summer just channels her insecurity into what looks like fearlessness, but it's really just another form of the same family dysfunction that affects all of us. Okay, this one's gonna be controversial, but the whole pickle thing is the most overrated disaster that ever happened to us. I can't go anywhere without someone shouting, "I'm Pickle Rick!" at me like it's the funniest thing ever invented. And look, I get it. The whole situation was a Die Hard parody with subtle John Wick references where Rick used pencils to kill people just like John Wick sometimes does. But can we please talk about what actually happened that day? Rick literally chose to become a pickle rather than spend 1 hour in family therapy. The reason we were supposed to go to therapy wasn't even about family problems. Summer was there for inhaling pottery enamel, and I was there for peeing in class, completely unrelated to our actual family issues. Then Rick spent the entire day in the sewers, brutally killing rats and building devices out of their body parts in what was basically an American Tail, Fievel Goes West reference. And somehow this became what everyone remembers about us. This became the thing people think defines our family. The whole point of that disaster was supposed to be that Rick will go to insane lengths to avoid emotional growth. It was supposed to show how messed up his priorities are, but instead, everyone just focuses on the pickle transformation and completely misses the point. It's like watching someone have a mental breakdown and only remembering the funny costume they were wearing while doing it. Let's talk about Bird Person, or Phoenix Person, or whatever he's calling himself now. Everyone treats this guy like he's Rick's tragic best friend and some kind of deep, meaningful character. But honestly, he's just there. Like, really just there. Bird Person's entire personality revolves around speaking slowly about his past with Rick and delivering these supposedly profound statements in bird culture. Everyone acts like their friendship is so meaningful and deep, but what do we actually know about it? They did drugs together and fought in some war. That's pretty much it. And then he dies, comes back as a cyborg, and suddenly everyone's like, oh no, the tragedy! But here's the thing, his death didn't really change Rick's behavior long term. Rick was sad for a brief period, and then went back to being the same emotionally detached person he always was. Bird Person didn't make Rick grow as a person or teach him some important lesson about relationships. The wedding disaster was supposed to be this big emotional moment, but all I could think was, this is the guy Rick considers his best friend? Someone who barely shows emotion and just accepts whatever Rick does? No wonder Rick has trust issues. His idea of a deep relationship is someone who doesn't challenge him or expect emotional reciprocity. And now we get to Mr. Meeseeks. Oh God, the Meeseeks. I cannot tell you how tired I am of people quoting, I'm Mr. Meeseeks, look at me! Like it's the height of comedy. These blue guys showed up for one crazy day called our Meeseeks and Destroy adventure, caused complete chaos, and somehow became what people think represents our whole family dynamic. The concept started as a random phrase that just caught on, but let's look at what actually happened to us. The Meeseeks are designed to help with simple tasks and then disappear, but when they can't complete their objectives, they become increasingly desperate and violent. Their entire existence becomes torture when they can't fulfill their purpose. Everyone thinks this was hilarious, but it was actually pretty dark when you're living through it. These beings literally suffered when they couldn't help, and instead of people seeing this as commentary on toxic productivity culture or the dangers of single-minded purpose, they just remember the catchphrase in bright blue color. The Meeseeks aren't clever or deep. They were just a one-note crisis that happened to be memorable. Their entire personality was being helpful until they couldn't complete a task, and then they became homicidal. But somehow this became iconic and people act like it represents some profound philosophy about existence and purpose. Alright, let's talk about Squanch. This is probably going to be quick because there's literally nothing to this character, but somehow people act like he's amazing. Squanch is Rick's friend who just replaces random words with squanch. That's it. That's the entire character concept. Everyone thinks it's hilarious that he has this speech pattern, but it's just not funny after the first time. It's like if someone decided to replace every verb with smurf and expected you to laugh every single time. The joke has one gear, and it never shifts. And then in his big dramatic moment, he sacrifices himself to save us from the Galactic Federation. And everyone's supposed to feel emotional about it. But why? We barely knew this guy. He showed up to Rick's parties, said squanch a lot, and that was pretty much our entire relationship with him. His death was supposed to be this meaningful moment that showed the cost of Rick's lifestyle and the loyalty of his friends, but I felt nothing because there was no real relationship there to mourn. It's like the writers needed someone to die to make Rick's situation feel more serious, so they picked the guy with the funny speech pattern and hoped we'd develop some attachment to him off screen. And then there's Unity. Oh man, Unity. Everyone acts like she's this deep, complex character who truly understands Rick, and that the relationship was some kind of tragic romance. But can we talk about what Unity actually is? She's a hive mind parasite that literally takes over entire civilizations and erases billions of individual consciousnesses. That's not romantic. That's horrifying. I was there when she took over our entire planet for a day. I watched her control every single person, making them do whatever she wanted, turning them into extensions of herself. She made people throw themselves off buildings just to spell out messages for Rick. But somehow fans think this makes her fascinating and philosophical. The worst part is how everyone romanticizes her relationship with Rick. Oh, she's the only one who can handle him. She really gets his genius. No, she doesn't get him. She just enables his worst behaviors because she's literally incapable of individual thought or growth. Their entire relationship was two broken entities using each other to avoid dealing with their problems. And when she left Rick that breakup message, everyone acted like it was this beautiful, mature decision. But she didn't leave to become a better person. She left because she knew she was becoming destructive, and instead of working on herself, she just ran away to go assimilate more planets. Real mature Unity Real growth there. She's basically the ultimate toxic relationship disguised as deep science fiction, but fans eat it up because she talks in philosophical sound bites and has a sad backstory. And speaking of characters that got way too much credit for basically nothing, Noob Noob. This guy literally shows up for like 30 seconds, says "God damn" in a funny voice, and somehow became this beloved meme that everyone quotes. That's it. That's his entire contribution to our lives. I was there when Rick brought him to that weird Vindicators parody thing, and all Noob Noob did was clean up after everyone and give Rick one compliment. One! But because he said it in that high-pitched voice and seemed to get Rick's humor, suddenly he's this amazing character that everyone wishes would come back. The worst part? Rick actually liked him more than the actual Vindicators, the people who were supposedly heroes trying to save the universe. But apparently being a janitor who laughs at Rick's jokes makes you more valuable than people who dedicate their lives to helping others. Classic Rick priorities right there. Everyone acts like Noob Noob was this hidden gem, this perfect sidekick that Rick should have kept around. But come on, the guy's entire personality was being enthusiastic about Rick's ego. That's not deep, that's just being a yes man with a speech impediment. Yet another example of how a memorable voice and one good moment somehow equals iconic character in people's minds. And now let's talk about Space Beth. Oh man, where do I even start with this whole situation? Everyone thinks the whole Clone Mom storyline is some kind of genius sci-fi writing and deep commentary about how people choose between family and dreams. But honestly, it's just a confusing attempt to make Mom a cool character. For years, Mom was just a regular housewife trying to hold our family together while Rick destroyed everything around us. And suddenly, boom, she becomes a space rebel with laser guns? How does that make sense character-wise? Haha, years of family life didn't prepare her to suddenly become an intergalactic warrior. And the whole clone concept. Seriously? Rick created a clone of my mom, and now we don't even know which one is real? This isn't some deep philosophical question about identity. It's just a confusing mess that makes any emotional development meaningless. How am I supposed to feel attached to Mom when I don't even know if she's real? Space Beth gets all this praise for being independent and strong, but let's be honest, she's basically just Rick in a female body. She abandons family for adventures, she's emotionally detached, and she solves problems with violence. This isn't character growth, it's just turning another family member into a Rick copy. Don't we have enough Ricks in the family already? And while we're talking about overrated characters, let's quickly touch on my dad, Jerry. Now, I know most people hate Jerry, but there's this whole group of fans who think he's underrated and actually the most sane person on the show. And you know what? They're wrong in the opposite direction. Yes, my dad isn't a crazy scientist who destroys realities. Yes, he tries to be a normal father in an abnormal situation. But let's not pretend he's a hero just because he's not Rick. Dad is selfish in his own way. He's jealous, insecure, and often puts his pride above the family's well-being. Remember when he literally tried to get our parents divorced because he couldn't handle Mom paying attention to Rick? Or when he sold Rick out to aliens because he felt threatened? That's not underrated hero behavior. That's the behavior of a scared, weak man who makes bad decisions when he's under pressure. And don't even get me started on how he treats unemployment like it's some kind of vacation. The guy spends months playing video games and eating cereal while Mom works her butt off to support the family. But somehow that makes him relatable to fans? That's not relatable. That's just pathetic. A real father would swallow his pride and take any job to help his family, not spend his days having existential crises about his masculinity. Okay, I know I said I wasn't going to talk about Evil Morty, but I can't finish this video without addressing the elephant in the room. Everyone acts like Evil Morty is some kind of masterpiece of character writing, the ultimate representation of what I could become if I embraced my potential. But here's what really bothers me about that whole thing. Evil Morty isn't deep. He's not some complex anti-hero, he's just me, but without empathy. And everyone celebrates that like it's character development instead of character assassination. People look at him and think, wow, finally a Morty who stands up for himself. But standing up for yourself doesn't mean becoming a mass murderer. The worst part? The way fans talk about Evil Morty makes it sound like being evil is the only way to be strong. Like the only way to stop being a victim is to become a monster. That's not inspiring, that's depressing. It's like the show is saying that anyone who's been through trauma has to choose between staying weak or becoming evil. I've been through plenty of trauma. I've been manipulated, used, and put in life-threatening situations, more times than I can count. But I refuse to believe that my only options are to stay a helpless victim or become a psychopath. Maybe there's a third option. Maybe you can become strong without losing your humanity. Maybe that's actually harder than just giving up and becoming evil, but it's also more worthwhile. Look, maybe I'm wrong about some of these people, but I've lived through enough trauma to know the difference between real growth and just surviving with a cool catchphrase. I'm trying to stay human while everyone else turns into monsters or jokes. Anyway, I hear Rick's portal gun charging up downstairs, so I better wrap this up before he... Oh crap, is that him coming up the stairs right now?
Morty, what the hell are you doing with my equipment?
Nothing, Rick!
Get out of here! Oh boy, and you're still here? Subscribe then. See you!